People expect too much these days. We've all heard this phrase somewhere on the internet in one form or another. Men complain that women have impossible standards. They want someone that's 6 foot, 6 figures, and a 6-pack. If you asked the same person 20 years ago, they would have asked if you were crazy. But that's what social media seems to paint. Or is it all just the algorithm pushing controversial content? At the same time, women complain that men want everything without bringing anything to the table, and every guy seems to be a misogynist. And while this is all happening, everyone is so busy arguing with each other that no one is happy or can trust one another. Everyone seems convinced that the other side has lost touch with reality, that expectations have become so inflated that genuine connection has become nearly impossible. And above all that, who still has energy to go on dating apps, let alone go outside to meet people in real life? By the time you go on a date, you have to navigate around all these potential landmines, because any nuanced discussion is long lost. But the surprising part about all these complaints might sound like a paradox. Both sides have their merit, in their own way. Expectations in many ways have become inflated, unrealistic, and often contradictory. What's changed in the past decade that's left both men and women feeling like they're fighting an impossible battle against ever-escalating demands? The easy and obvious suspect would be social media and the internet, and you're right, they do play a part. But let's explore a bit deeper and truly understand, have modern dating standards actually become impossible to keep up with? Let's first look back a few decades ago, before the internet was invented, before the dating apps and social media, when things were firmly grounded in the world around you. The only way to meet people was through touching grass and interacting with the real world. It might feel like a century ago, but even just 20 years ago, your potential dating pool was limited to a relatively small circle, especially compared to today's standards. People in your immediate area, friends of friends, classmates, co-workers, or people you'd meet through shared activities and interests. This natural limitation served as an automatic expectation calibration, or in other words, a reality check. When your options were essentially the people you actually encounter in real life, everyone quickly developed a sense of what was possible and what wasn't. If you were consistently attracted to people who weren't interested in you, reality, the external world, would provide swift and clear feedback, or you'd just be laughed at. For example, back in the day, classes in society were much less equal, and someone who was born poor would never dream of getting together with someone in the richer classes. They'd be beaten on the street for suggesting such an absurd idea. But more importantly, the league system worked both ways. Yes, it could be brutal for people who consistently aimed higher than their apparent market value, but it also provided protection in a weird way. That incredibly attractive person who might have been out of your league wasn't constantly visible in your daily life, creating a perpetual sense of missing out. You weren't able to see them posting highlight reels of their perfect relationship on your phone screen every day. So instead, fantasies stay as fantasy. And if you wanted to make a move, well, you didn't have time to overthink it, because you never know if you'd see them again. The friend of friends network provided natural filters too. Someone's social circle generally shared similar values, life situations, and social economic status. This wasn't perfect. It could be limiting and sometimes classist or insular. But it meant you were more likely to meet people who were actually compatible with your lifestyle and expectations. Perhaps most crucially, the people who were supposed to be out of your league had a way of being brought back down to earth. When you actually got to know someone in person over time, normally, through shared experiences and genuine interaction, their flaws and humanity became apparent. The illusion of perfection was impossible to maintain when you saw someone struggling with a group project, dealing with family drama, or just having an off day. So then, social media came along, and as we all know, things changed dramatically. Now, instead of being limited to the people you actually encounter, everyone is constantly exposed to couples who look like they stepped out of a magazine. Because they kinda did. Beyond the filters and editing, influencer couples aren't really showing you their relationship, they're selling you their lifestyle. Their candid moments are carefully staged, their conflicts are strategically hidden, and their entire presentation is designed to make you want what they have, to live their life. Now this is fine if everyone was able to constantly be aware of how fake it all is, but because of how human brains are wired, there's a lot more damage going on than you might realize. The psychological impact of this constant exposure is subtly harmful, almost like breathing polluted air. You might not even realize the damage it's doing until years down the line. When you see couple after couple living what appears to be a perfect life, traveling to exotic location after location, wearing the nicest branded clothes, living in beautiful homes, never seeming to argue or struggle, and only having a good time, It creates an unconscious baseline of what relationships should look like. Your own relationships and the people you see in real life, with their normal human struggles, suddenly seem inferior. By now, we already know these couples that people compare themselves to are sponsored to look happy. Their relationship is literally their job. They are marketing a lifestyle that keeps you watching and wanting more, creating this parasocial relationship. They have brand partnerships that fund their lifestyle. Many of them even have relationship drama and breakups that they strategically time around their posting schedules to maximize engagement. Yet, despite knowing all this, for many it doesn't help them to want that lifestyle any less. It's probably obvious to some, but the brain doesn't automatically process this artificial presentation as advertising. It processes it as evidence of what's possible and what you should expect. Even though we all know this, sometimes it's hard to not subconsciously compare ourselves to what we see on social media and ask if there's something wrong with our own lifestyle. If those people can have that kind of relationship, why shouldn't you? This logic seems foolproof when you are surrounded by toxic positivity, where everyone deserves everything. The comparison trap extends beyond just lifestyle to personality traits and attractiveness. Social media creates a highlight reel culture where everyone is presenting their best self at all times. It's very rare, almost unnatural for someone to want to post their vulnerable moments for the entire world to see. Even the close friends list is carefully curated these days. The result is that our sense of what normal attractiveness, success, or happiness looks like has become completely distorted. Although these changes might not happen overnight, over time we subtly shift what the norm and expectation is. It went from impossible beauty standards to an increase in surgery, to men suddenly feeling the urge to work out every day in order to meet the standards set by fitness influencers. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to improve your appearance of health, but is it really coming from a good, genuine place? One thing led to another, and human jealousy and wanting more made standards slowly rise until it altered how we process our own romantic experiences and expectations altogether. The rise of ick lists and red flags represents a particularly toxic example of how group psychology can inflate expectations beyond all reason. An ick could originally be defined as some sort of internal response to something genuinely incompatible or unattractive, and for the most part started as a light-hearted way to make fun of minor flaws that were ridiculous yet still a turn-off. Now they've almost become social currency. People compete to have the most extensive and specific ick lists, turning minor preferences into moral imperatives. He used a reusable water bottle, becomes grounds for immediate dismissal. She laughed too loudly at the movie, becomes evidence of fundamental incompatibility. The other reality is that, as much as these things may start off as a joke, not everyone handles criticism the same way, or understands the context fully, and it ends up becoming a war where people call each other overly sensitive or rude. This is amplified by the "I deserve better" mentality that social media culture has enabled. While self-respect and healthy boundaries are important, the phrase "I deserve better" has become a catch-all justification for perfectionist thinking. It suggests that settling for anything less than your ideal is a betrayal of your self-worth, rather than a normal part of human compromise and growth. The question in today's fast-paced world is no longer, who can I grow with in a relationship, but instead, let me find the best option who has already done all the hard work with someone else at the end of the finish line. But that misses a lot of the beauty of relationships, being able to communicate the differences and learning to understand each other despite their flaws. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have standards. It's that social media has created a culture where having increasingly unrealistic standards is seen as a virtue rather than a potential obstacle to connection. The person who's willing to overlook minor flaws or work through compatibility issues is somehow seen as settling, while the person who maintains an ever-expanding list of deal breakers is praised for knowing their worth. This sounds a bit concerning, doesn't it? Dating apps promised to solve the problem of limited options, but they created an entirely new problem, the illusion of infinite choice. When anyone can swipe through hundreds of potential matches in a single evening, and there's always another profile just to swipe away, commitment suddenly sounds a lot more scary, and quite frankly, not worth it, creating this infinite cycle of choice. This is the paradox of choice, taken to its logical extreme. Research has consistently shown that too many options leads to decision paralysis and decreased satisfaction with whatever choice you do make. But dating apps don't just give you more options, they give you the perpetual promise of better options. Even when you're in a good relationship, the apps are still there, suggesting that maybe someone even more perfect is just waiting to be discovered. The grass is greener mentality that apps cultivate is particularly destructive because it prevents the kind of deep investment that makes relationships actually work beyond that initial spark that people mistake for love. When you believe that the perfect person is just one swipe away, Why would you put in the hard work of building intimacy with someone who's merely good enough? That requires working through actual pain and discomfort of learning to compromise and meet in the middle. And that's the real dating standard that actually seems impossible to attain and difficult to expect. It seems like if one does not provide instant engagement and entertainment, the spark is not there, and one can simply go on to the next person for a better chance. Why settle? When they hit the ick, go next. Meanwhile, the gamification of dating has reduced complex human beings to a series of superficial characteristics that can be quickly evaluated and discarded. The rich complexity of human attraction, the way someone's sense of humor grows on you, how their kindness becomes beautiful over time, how shared experiences create bonds that transcend initial physical attraction. All of this gets lost in the swipe-based evaluation system. Dating apps also create what economists would call market failure. They optimize for engagement, not for successful relationships. The app's business model depends on keeping you single and searching, not on helping you find lasting love. That's more of a happy side effect, but not really their main goal. This means a system designed to maintain perpetual dissatisfaction rather than genuine connection. If you don't get the wallet out, you will either feel like a total failure with your one match a month as a guy, or you will be overwhelmed by bad matches as a woman. Paradoxically, at the same time that expectations have become inflated, many people have actually started putting more effort into self-improvement than ever before. The fitness industry is booming. Skincare routines have become elaborate rituals. Therapy and personal development are mainstream. And glow-up transformations dominate social media feeds. This creates a strange arms race where everyone competing to find the love of their life is simultaneously trying to get more attractive and more demanding. The person who's invested thousands of dollars and countless hours in their physical appearance, mental health, and personal development naturally starts to expect the same level of investment from potential partners. After all, if they've put in the work to become their best self, they will naturally also expect someone of the same level. But this inevitably creates an impossible escalation. As the average level of self-improvement increases, so does the baseline expectation. What was once impressive naturally becomes merely adequate. The six-pack that would have been remarkable 10 years ago is now just meeting the minimum standard, at least if you are chronically online. I mean, if you go to the nearby supermarket, it's clear that being fit and toned is still very much the exception. The emotional intelligence and nuance required to communicate effectively, that would have been rare, is now expected as basic competency. The result is a dating landscape where everyone is working harder than ever to meet standards that keep rising faster than anyone can achieve them. People are simultaneously more attractive and more frustrated, more self-aware and more demanding, more invested in personal growth, and more disappointed by their dating outcomes. And if you don't feel like joining in and spending hours a week improving yourself, it seems like you are treated as subhuman and have no value at all. So, where does this leave us? We're living through a historically unique moment where our romantic expectations have been completely untethered from the constraints that used to keep them grounded in reality, or when the rules kind of made sense. We have access to more information about what's possible than ever before, but less wisdom about what's actually sustainable or fulfilling, unless you were blessed with luck or great genes that meant you didn't have to put in much work. It's not a surprise why so many people are upset about how difficult dating standards have become. No individual can mass delete social media or dating apps and erase all the mental health damage this has caused. So the only path forward seems to be learning to distinguish between inspiration and expectation. It's healthy to see examples of great relationships and want to improve your own. It's unhealthy to treat every couple you see online as a benchmark you must meet in order to find love. Everyone is ultimately entitled to their own standards, even if it has become unrealistic. At the end of the day, each person has to make their own choice and decide whether or not it's attainable. The sad reality is, many people will be left disappointed if they continue to chase fantasy over what's in front of them, or actually available. We've seen how the combination of unlimited choices, the psychology of constant comparison, and unrealistic expectations from social media, as well as the general trend of online shaping reality, have all made dating harder than ever before, and quite frankly, a nightmare for the average person. The good news is that there are genuine people out there in the same boat as you. The tricky part is meeting them without giving up hope and wading through the masses to find people on the same page as you. Dating has truly become a numbers game where only those who are willing to risk a lot of time and energy into it can possibly win. But at the same time, many people have given up altogether. And after all of this, it's easy to figure out why. Dating has become more superficial with little reward. What are actual reasonable expectations? It's reasonable to expect someone who can communicate their needs and where they are healthily. It's reasonable to expect people to be realistic about what to expect in a partner and to realize people are a work in progress and not to expect perfection from the get-go. It's reasonable to realize that people will have changing needs over time as they age and people aren't a monolith. It's harmful for everyone to expect a person in their early 20s to expect the same thing as someone in their late 20s. People change over time and people are more unique and individual than ever before in history, so it seems the only way to participate is to own your uniqueness and be prepared to compromise accordingly. But that is a story for another video.